Season 4, Episode 38 of Brackets. Both and Bit Steelers. I am Sam Fetterman. That is Jonathan Litzkin. Here with us is Jason Conander, who does some stuff down at the University of Texas in Austin and his Longhorns today. Jonathan, do we got to do it?
I don't know if we can do it with Jason on the pod, but
I think we can do it. Do you take offense to horns down?
No, I do not. And I don't think that any of the sports at the University of Texas should. You know, guys, the whole mentality with the sports on campus in the fall was embrace the hate. And I don't think the basketball team has gotten the memo, but they came pretty close to pulling off a pretty impressive win against Houston tonight.
Yeah, I thought that I was impressed with what Texas put out there tonight, but I mean, Houston is just a team of grown men playing a sport that is made for kids.
Yeah, and I thought that Texas in the first half looked way different than Texas in the second half. I mean, what Fran Fraschilla and the guys on the broadcast were saying was that Texas needed to come out and look a whole lot more physical. They needed to look like they wanted the game more in the second half, and they really did. They led by 6 with less than 10 minutes to go and just let the game slip away. Some of Houston's adjustments out of the timeouts were incredibly impressive tonight, and I think that overtime went exactly how we all expected it to. A grinded out affair, fouls on both sides, tight defense, and Houston was able to pull it out in the last second. But guys, I was very impressed by this Texas team tonight, and I actually think they probably move up the seed line regardless of the outcome, win or lose, because of how they played against the net number 1 team.
Yeah, I just look at what they were able to do out there tonight, and I kind of cringed when Fran Fraschilla said that in the first half. He's like, they just got to come out and want it more. I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's the issue. Like, they're just not good enough. And then they come out in the second half and they were the aggressors physically. And that's not something that you expect from anyone playing against Houston. But then Houston. They turned it up to another level. And I was so impressed with what they were able to do down the stretch of this game. I mean, 47-36 on the glass. They had 15 offensive rebounds. They are the best team in the country at just regenerating possessions, no matter what. And if they don't get one good look, they'll get a good look eventually.
Yeah, this is a Texas team that gets out-rebounded almost every night. And I thought that even though this is a Houston team that plays physical basketball, they're one of the better rebounding teams in the country. On paper, Texas actually did have the size advantage. And while they were able to play a tight game, with the rebound margin being that slanted, I do want to say, Max Abmas did a great job defensively tonight. Jamal Shead was not the player for Houston that was supposed to go off and win the game for them. If that was going to be somebody, it was going to be LJ Cryer with Max Abmas guarding him. And instead it was Jamal Shead, Houston's third scoring option, who went off for 25 points against Texas's best defender, arguably, in Tyrese Hunter. And it took until Rodney Terry adjusted and put Kendall Weaver on Shead in the late second half to where Jamal Shead wasn't getting his shots to fall. And I think that if our team made that adjustment earlier, this was an unbelievable. I saw that Jonathan tweeted this out earlier. This was a great coached game by Rodney Terry, but that was the one adjustment that he made that I thought should have been made out of the break at halftime, because Shead had Texas's number literally all night.
Yeah. My thing with this game, I haven't watched a ton of Texas this year, but whenever I have, I've honestly been really, really disappointed with Tyrese Hunter. I've thought that compared to the player that I've seen him be over the past few years on the defensive end, it's just not there. He's been, I think his freshman year was his best year defensively. Now, offensively, he's been much better. He's averaging a career high in points. He's shooting a career high from 3 and from the field. He's got a good amount of assists, and he's not turning it over as much as he did in his freshman year. But on the whole, his defense was the selling point with him. And I think that has been, honestly, Abmas has been as good of a defender at times this year as Hunter, and that's just not what you need from him. And the fact that you have to take him off of Shead and put Weaver on him is just an indictment on what he's been unable to do on the defensive side of the ball this year. And it kind of handicaps their ceiling, that we all saw the uptick in their ceiling, and we keep talking about how their ceiling is higher with Dylan Dessou. But I just don't see the ceiling on this Texas team. With Rodney Terry as the coach, because I just think that today, I mean, he coached well, but he just hasn't coached well enough this season, I don't think. And I just don't see Tyrese Hunter the way that I hoped to see him.
I think overall, like, you can definitely say at least over the last 3 games that Texas has been playing much better basketball than they were over the previous month or so. Like, just on that side, even though they didn't get a win tonight, it was really impressive to see a team go out and even for that, like, 10, 12-minute stretch in the second half, play Houston's game better than them. Because teams just don't do that. Like, Houston's identity is that they're just going to bully you, they're going to rebound the ball, and they're going to be way more physical than you. And for a large part of the game, Texas was the more physical team. And I think that's in large part because of Rodney Terry's adjustments. That's in large part just because they came out of the half with a different mentality and just kind of turned it on late, like, as deeper we got into the half. But even like more so, I thought it was impressive from Houston too, who's a really slow basketball team, like 350s in pace, that Texas goes up 6 and just like they immediately turn it on and go on. I think it was a 9-0 run to get the lead back. So It was great adjustments from both teams. I thought both coaches did a really good job tonight. Houston's going to make every single game ugly. They're not going to be the most exciting basketball team to watch in the world. And sometimes you have to play a little bit ugly to beat them.
Yeah, I'm going to
my thing about Houston is just that I forgot what I was getting into there, but with Houston, Jim Root mentioned this. When you're playing against them versus playing against anyone else, it's like the video game on the highest difficulty setting. There's just players going for they're putting bodies on you everywhere. They're getting every rebound. They have the go-go gadget arms contesting every shot. And Texas just has never seen that. They haven't played each other. These programs haven't played each other. And Houston kind of comes out there and looks awesome. It's just they looked awesome in the first half, and Texas kind of got shell shocked by it. And I think that a lot of teams get shell shocked by it. I mean, Kansas State was shell shocked by it, for what it's worth there. And I think that a lot of teams that don't see this aren't used to it. And then when you are able to go into half and say, all right, this shit is real. This is so much more real than I thought it was. They are everything that they are on film and more. I can't imagine what it's like playing against them. I mean, I just watch them. Playing against them has to feel like 11 wars. It is the most. They are them and UConn, like, just for different reasons. UConn because you got to follow all their actions. Houston because they just have their hands everywhere, and they're so physical. And Texas comes out there, they regroup after halftime and say, all right, there's just a different level that we need to get to. And to their credit, they got to it. But what makes Houston Houston is that they're just able to respond, punch back. And it's what they did so well whenever they were punched in the American Conference, and now they're doing it in the Big 12.
Jonathan, you brought up a really good point about how Texas was a more physical team tonight, and that really surprised me because this is a Texas team that is not physical. They got way outbodied against BYU on Saturday. They were lucky against a Baylor team who usually plays very physical, and somehow they stuck out with a win. And honestly, Sam, what you said about Tyrese Hunter not being as great of a defender as was advertised when he first came to Austin, I mean, you're completely right. This is a guard who is usually tasked with guarding the best player on the opposing team, and more often than not this season, that player on the opposing team has went off for a big night, whether it be Tyler Kolek at Marquette or Jalen Sellers at UCF, to name two players that come off the top of my head, another one being Joe Toussaint at Texas Tech. I mean, Tyrese Hunter has had some rough nights defensively this year, but at the same time, Texas has gotten some contributions defensively from places that they maybe didn't expect. I mean, Kendall Weaver was brought in for his shooting. He was one of the most efficient shooters in the country last season at UT Arlington as a freshman, and now he has developed into Texas's best off-ball defender at the guard position. I mean, that's a huge revelation. Part of that is Hunter not playing well, but another part of that is just the growth of Kendall Weaver. On top of that, the play of Brock Cunningham this year has been really frustrating, I think, for those of us who have been watching the Texas team. Because last year, in a limited role, he was shooting close to 43% from three. So he's a highly efficient offensive player with a couple touches he was getting per game. And then he was the glue guy. He was diving around the floor and making game-saving plays, playing physical. And that's kind of lost this season. He's not playing his best basketball. He clanked a three-pointer off the side of the backboard tonight in one of the most inopportune moments of the first half when Houston was on a deep run. And he wasn't playable in the late part of the game. This is a 24-year-old, sixth-year senior who is supposed to be your most experienced defensive player this season, and Texas just isn't getting contributions from parts of the roster that they probably expected to going into the year.
I think it's really – the Brock Cunningham part of this is really interesting because – people will joke all they want about how he's been in college forever, but I think one thing that goes kind of under people's minds is that Brock Cunningham has had 3 different coaches at Texas.
Also, Brock, we talked about this with Josh. Brock Cunningham is to Texas what Anton Watson is to Gonzaga. Hometown kid, been there for a million years. Literally, he's from Austin. Like how Watson is from Spokane.
I remember back in his early days at Texas, Shaka would use him in so many different ways defensively. They would switch to a zone and he would go play the top of the zone and be your first trapper out of it. It's just interesting because glue guys only work in the right spots. They're purely system players that will go out and do the little things that you ask them to. But when you have 3 different coaches, that's kind of hard to keep adjusting to because what you can do on a basketball court is obviously very specific and at times limited. And we know that with Brock Cunningham. I don't know if it's just the different bodies around him. Full year under Rodney Terry last year, they were still doing a lot of specific Chris Beard stuff after Beard was fired. But yeah, it has not been a kind year for Brock Cunningham.
And I really think the last aspect of this game from the Texas side that's really worth mentioning is it was a big night, big second half, particularly for Dylan Mitchell. And this was a guy who came to campus in Austin last year as a top 5 recruit in the country. He was a guy who had, lottery pick aspirations, and last year just didn't get the touches that you see from a top 10 recruit in the country. But he played within his role well and came back to school this year. And it's been an up and down year. He has played within his role well, though. And that's what people, kind of don't understand. People who don't watch the Texas program night in and night out don't understand that, even though Dylan Mitchell has this 5-star pedigree, he's, kind of a scrappy player, and he's going to be Texas's best rebounder. And tonight we saw that he's pretty crafty in the paint when he gets enough touches. And on the offensive glass, he's a menace, needs to improve at the line, needs to add any semblance of a shot package. But this is a guy who, when he came to campus under Chris Beard, was probably expecting to spend 9 months at most in Austin. And now we're looking at a guy who maybe could be a 4-year player. And I think that revelation is pretty big for Texas. He could end up being a building block for Rodney Terry, something that Texas isn't necessarily used to having because they've had to rebuild this roster the last 3 off seasons.
Yeah, I think they've done a really nice job with his development so far. Obviously, not every recruit is what 247 Sports thinks that they're going to be, or really any recruiting site. That's not a shot at 24/7, but it's just not every recruit pans out the way that we think that they're going to. It's hard to evaluate recruits.
Yeah,
but they've done a really nice job with his development. I think he's doing a great job being a lot more aggressive this year in a bigger role. And I know there were clips that kind of surfaced around last offseason when Dylan Mitchell was hitting threes at the NBA draft workouts or whatever it was. Not everything is going to come for him at once on the offensive end. We know he has the tools athletically. I'm interested to see how he makes another jump next year.
Do you remember what my comparison was for Dylan Mitchell before he stepped on a college court, Jonathan?
I don't, but like I remember it being something really interesting.
It was Jalen Wilson.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean by that?
He's a little more Derek Jones Jr., I think.
Yeah, but in high school, I saw like a more athletic.
He shot, and he shot the ball in high school.
Yeah, but like you see what I mean? Like this is the type of arc we could be looking at here. Just like if he stays 4 years, it's an All-American.
Yeah. Oh, I said that in one of my group chats tonight. I mean, his progression from last year to this year. I mean, he plays his best in Texas's biggest games. If you look back at last year,
I mean, at the Garden, I was so impressed. So impressed at the Garden. He had 21 in that game. Was hitting every shot.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good player. I mean, his role has been interesting on these last two Texas teams, but I think tonight Dylan Dessou didn't get, when Dylan Dessou gets into an early rhythm, it's a completely different Texas team because then he can score at all three levels. And tonight, Houston just made that impossible. And so Texas needed Dylan Mitchell to show something offensively. And some of the shot selection is still questionable. I'm not a huge fan of the turnarounds, even though he gets up pretty good on them. He's just not a polished jump shooter. But some of the little stuff that he does, it contributes to winning basketball. And up until like Jonathan said, these past couple of games, Texas has looked like a different Texas team. Like they didn't have those little things go their way. Like they weren't, tipping the rebounds out to the perimeter and getting a second chance offensive possession. They weren't, getting those putback dunks or those hustle plays, chase down blocks, the stuff that when Dylan Mitchell's playing his best basketball, he offers to you. And so to see him do that in what has been the biggest game of the season tonight, I think is a good sign because each of the last couple of years at Texas, we've had 3 different coaches the last 4 years, but there's been a different player who has stepped up down the stretch. Last year, it was Dylan Dessou. This year, you see Kendall Weaver coming off the bench, but he's just not going to get the touches to be that guy. I feel like this performance from Dylan Mitchell, even though it came in a loss, is kind of a springboard game where we might see a completely different Dylan Mitchell for the last 6 weeks of the season than we saw for the first 2-3 months. That's just my opinion on it.
Yeah. I would not be surprised there to see Mitchell be one of the stars of the second half of the season. Thank you so much, Jason, for joining us here on Brackets, Bubbles, and Bit Steelers.
No problem, boys. Keep up the great work. Big fan of y'all's work, and best of luck the rest of the season and semester. Keep up the great work.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on. Jonathan, we do have to get into the only other game of note tonight. It was a terrible slate.
You know what? I was kind of thinking about it, and yeah, it was a terrible slate. Like only 2 games worth watching. But
literally, it's two high major games, both with ranked teams going on the road, and then the MEAC, SWAC, Southland, and 1 Patriot League game.
I was thinking about it tonight.
I didn't watch a second of any of those games, and I'm a sicko. I will watch anything that's on. I did not watch a second of any of those games. McNeese played.
Well,
I don't even know what the score was. 89-65. McNeese won.
If you were unhappy about tonight's slate, just wait until next week, buddy.
Uh-oh. Hold on.
We got Kansas at Kansas State next week on Monday. That's the late game. But, I mean, Miami and Virginia is your early ACC game.
Hey. Eastern Washington, Portland State's not bad.
I mean, that would have been the 3rd best game tonight by far.
It's the 3rd best game next Monday. But, there's no more interesting McNeese games.
So, I think later...
they already played at Corpus Christi. They're not going to lose.
I think as we start to get later in the season, they do start to add, more, high majors playing on Big Monday. I believe.
Whatever happened to Big Monday? What's going on here?
Well, it's
you know what the Monday slate is 2 weeks from now? Kansas Tech, Wake Forest, Duke, West Virginia, TCU.
Well, that's a slate.
3 weeks from now, it's actually not that bad. There's Virginia Tech, Iowa State, Houston, Texas, Kansas State, Colgate, Lafayette. Charleston plays. Chicago State plays.
Here's my theory.
By the way, shout out Chicago State because they've won 4 in a row.
Dude, don't they have like a 1 month break?
They have a 10-day layoff from their last game to their next game. They play Duquesne on Wednesday. Then they don't play until the next Saturday when they go to South Carolina State. Then they play that Wednesday at Eastern Kentucky.
Yeah,
and then
I was going to say they only have
they play
4 games
Monday,
left.
February 19th. Their final game of the season, Monday, February 19th.
Well, they'll have plenty of time to get healthy and rest before the NCAA tournament.
Because they're getting them that large. Actually, they're the conference champions of the independents.
So, Sam, you and I watched Big Monday growing up, and like we kind of got that. Like we see all these big games on Big Monday, like year in and year out. You know why Big Monday is like now what we remember it to be?
Why?
Because the ACC sucks. Like Big Monday is supposed to be an ACC early game, a Big 12 late game. The ACC doesn't have any good games. The good games in the ACC, one's being played this Saturday, the other one's being played the final day of the regular season. That's all it is. Like, and
I'm just looking back. Yeah, like here I'm looking back. 10 years ago, January 27th, 2014, the Big Monday slate was Oklahoma State. Name trivia time. Name the Ken Pom game MVP.
What year was this?
2013-14. Oklahoma beat Oklahoma State 88-76. I would not be able to get this, by the way.
Who won the game?
Oklahoma.
Was it an Oklahoma or Oklahoma State player that was Ken Pom?
Oklahoma player.
Okay, hold on. 2013-14.
I'll tell you his stat line. He had 15 points, 17 rebounds, and a block.
Oh my god! Yeah, I have no idea.
Ryan Spangler.
I know who that is. I just like
I remember him, but like I don't remember him that well. Duke Pitt, which was like top 10 in Ken Pom against.
That team was decent.
Yeah, that was Pitt was 18-2 coming in, and that game was at Pitt.
Duke win.
Duke won by 15.
Your Ken Pom MVP was Jabari Parker.
Incorrect.
Rodney Hood.
Incorrect.
Really?
It was Emil Jefferson.
Wow.
He had 14, 10, and 2. Jabari had 21 and 11 and wasn't Ken Pom game MVP.
That's crazy. Jabari was so good. People forget about him, I think, as a college player.
Number 5 in Ken Pom National Player of the Year. Name the 4 ahead of him.
In 2014?
Yes.
Okay. Who was National Player of the Year that year? Was that that wasn't like Jimmer Fredette, was it?
No, he was 2011.
No, that was a couple years before. Frank Kaminsky.
I don't know who actually won National Player of the Year that year.
Frank Kaminsky.
Oh no, I know who won National Player of the Year that year. No, not Frank Kaminsky.
Really?
He was the next year.
Julius Randle?
Nope, he was that year, but he wasn't that good.
Not Shabazz, right?
Shabazz was number 2.
Okay.
In Ken Pom, he was number 4 in National Player.
Tyler Ennis.
That was that year, but no.
Oh. Damn.
It's another 6-foot guard from the American Conference.
Another 6-foot guard from the American Conference?
Because Napier's one, and
who else was in the league back then? You'll say the name and I know it. Like probably.
Russ Smith.
They were in the American?
The one for that 1 year.
Oh my god, I forgot about that. Russ Smith wasn't
number one. They were the number 1 team in Ken Pom, and they were in the American, so they got a 4 seed.
Yeah, but he didn't win National Player of the Year, right?
He did not. National Player of the Year was a Big East player.
Is this player above Jabari Parker?
Yes, he was above Jabari Parker.
Okay.
6'8" wing.
In the Big East?
You may know him by a nickname.
I may know him by a nickname.
Well, the nickname is like not... The nickname is a first name and last name. You may also know his father.
I may also know his father. Dude, this is going to be really bad. Why am I blanking on this?
This is so embarrassing. He's like top 5 all-time leading scorer.
In like college basketball or the NBA?
Yeah, like I remember seeing graphics. It's like, he's chasing Larry Bird.
This player, not his father.
This player. For 3 years, he did not play in the Big East. But then his team moved to the Big East.
His team moved to the Big East. So it's like, who moved to the Big East? It's like Xavier and like Butler.
Once you know it, once you say the team, you will know exactly who it is.
Oh my God, Doug McDermott.
Yeah.
Holy cow, that took too long.
And the last one, I don't think you're going to get.
Give me the conference.
Pac-10. Wait, no, this is Pac-12 era.
Yes, this is Pac-12 era. This isn't Shabazz Muhammad, is it?
No, it's Nick Johnson.
I actually would have got there eventually. I like Nick Johnson a lot.
6 was Westchester and CYO, Our Lady of Mercy legend Sean Kilpatrick. Shout out Coach Gallagher. 7 was Xavier Thames. I don't remember him at all.
No, I don't either.
San Diego State. 8 was Cleanthony Early of Middletown, New York, which is the same hometown as Kyle Filipowski.
If you had given me like 2 more seconds, I was about to say the most random name ever.
What were you going to say?
Like Peyton Pritchard.
He's from Westland, Oregon, same as Jackson Shelstad.
I know.
All right, Jordan McRae of the University of Tennessee, Midway, Georgia, same hometown as.
What town?
Midway, Georgia.
Clinton Capella.
I
do not think he's from the United States.
Midway, Georgia, same hometown as Raekwon McMillan. New England Patriots legend. Jarnell Stokes of Memphis, Tennessee, and the University of Tennessee. You got any takeaways from the Duke game? Because honestly, I think
that's what I was about to ask you. I mean, they looked good tonight. I was impressed with the fight.
I think there's pretty much the same team that I thought they were coming into this game. I didn't learn anything.
Ryan Young, Ken Palm game MVP. So
the whole Ryan Young situation. Just like Ryan Young will do.
Duke Twitter hold that.
Ryan Young will do some of the stupidest crap ever, and then just get like the greatest rebound of all time.
Yeah, it was a really balanced effort though. Like this team can really shoot it. Proctor hit a couple threes. Roach hit 4 threes. Duke people were saying he looked injured still, which like credit to him if he's playing through it still. McCain didn't have a great shooting night, but hit a huge transition 3 late to push it out to 9. It's just like this is a spot where you're like very glad that they played as well as they did with North Carolina coming up on Saturday.
Excited for that one. Some big games tomorrow. Marquette, Villanova, San Diego State, Colorado State, Iowa, Indiana, Oklahoma, Kansas State, Egg Bowl, Texas Tech, TCU, Illinois, Ohio State.
You did not just call Indiana, Iowa a big game. Take that back.
Hey, I didn't call Oklahoma State's game a big game.
Well, you didn't call it a certain word that started with an I either.
Oklahoma State plays an uninteresting game against Kansas.
Which is actually a very appropriate word for that. So here's my question that will close out the night because we really only had to talk about the 2 games.
It's a very quick pod tonight.
It's fine. It's Big Monday. Only 2 games. Here's my question.
Sorry. No, Jonathan. We're calling it Little Monday now.
Fine. Is it kind of
my one thing? My one thing is Taman Lipsy the closest thing in this sport to Desmond Ritter?
You know, I swear to God, last night I was thinking about that. Not that exactly, but I'm like, you know what? We were supposed to use that bit a lot more than we have.
Yeah, you know why? Because Taman Lipsy's been like a borderline All-American.
Well, we were supposed to use it with everyone. And what I'm thinking...
That's what happens when you don't have organic bits.
What I'm thinking is that Claudio Harris is the closest thing the sport has to Kyle Van Noy.
What? She's like, what? What?
Here's my question, though, for you. Question of the night right here. Houston wins at Allen Fieldhouse on Saturday. They're your number one team in the country?
UConn plays at the Garden on Saturday.
They certainly have the metrics. Nobody wins there except for Shahada Wells, apparently.
Shahada Wells, Ken Palm game MVP at Allen Fieldhouse, and now he's playing in the Southland.
He shouldn't be playing in the Southland.
Well, Will Wade shouldn't be coaching in the Southland.
Yeah, he should be coaching at DePaul, who was not a subject of anything on Twitter today.
No, there was nothing important that went down with DePaul today.
All right. Got anything else? Or am I taking us out?
Take us home, Jonathan.
If you came to hear about Tyler's self-employment, where he's currently working, you came to the right place. If you came to hear about the 2014 Ken Palm National Player of the Year race, well, you came to the right place tonight. And if you came to hear about what's going on with Caleb Grill's life and what he's up to these days, well,
what is he up to right now?
What's he up to right now? Well, I'm guessing he's getting ready for bed. But we are going to be doing that in a sec, because this is episode 38 of season 4 of Brackets, Bubbles, and Bid Stealers. We will see you tomorrow night.